And we're live here on Facebook. I'd like to welcome those listening in podcast land and also to those watching on YouTube. Rich, I'd also like to welcome you to the room. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. It was a good week.
Good.
Can't go into full details yet because nothing's really official. But yeah. So how was your week, Mike?
My week went well. The last couple days has been kind of terrible.
Okay.
I got 101 degree temperature right now.
All right, but you're still well enough to do the show, so I appreciate that. Hopefully you can relax with the family. Maybe watch some football today over the weekend because it is super wild card weekend.
The key is we don't want to get our baby sick. So I'm not holding her. I'm not playing with her. I'm not helping really at all on the baby front. So my poor wife.
Ooh. Are you? Is it to the point that you're banished to the basement?
Basically.
Okay.
Basically. So.
All right. So that's how we're doing, Mike. So obviously we're going to be talking some football. We got a national championship game to recap, as well as wrapping up the NFL's regular season and the postseason. What else are we talking on this week, Mike?
Well, we got some baseball news to talk about this week, and we got some Black Monday to talk about this week.
That's right, Mike. All that and more. But what's the time to do, Mike?
Roll the intro. Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa. This is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich. And we're back. Okay, Rich, before we do anything, we have to discuss the poll question, the super wild card matchup of the week. We put all of those that made it to this last round into a poll that failed to advance. Put them in a thing in one poll question, and you guys picked Chili to go on.
Well, I didn't pick them, but the people did.
Yeah.
So how did the vote total go, Mike? Because you've got more screens than I do.
Chili got 9 votes. Barbecue ribs got 4. Pork chops got 2. Sub sandwich got 1. And buffalo chicken dip got 1.
Okay, so nobody got shut out. So it was a wide lost my train of thought there. So at least everybody had a good opinion on what was best. I'm surprised Chili won, though.
Yeah. Personally, I would have picked... I picked pork chops. What did you go with, Rich?
I went with barbecue ribs.
See, and ribs is one of those that I think can be a tailgate food. Because it's got its own stick already.
It does.
So, I still think the pork chop sandwich, though.
All right, so that'll set up a rematch. Brisket versus chili. Note these can't be combined and turned into brisket chili as a selection. It is just chili.
Yeah.
How you choose to interpret it of what could be of the protein in the chili is up for you to decide.
Yeah.
All right.
Rich. So
we'll get that poll set up after we get off of air. Mike, we have the national championship game on Monday.
Yep.
Georgia beats Alabama 33-18 to get their first national championship since 1980.
Hey, we were both right on those picks as well, as we both picked Georgia to be the team to win.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game because it was on ESPN, and I don't have cable
it was on ESPN
or
Plus as well, though.
I'm sorry?
I thought you could watch it on ESPN Plus.
You could, but I think you had to have a cable provider to log into it since it was a live event.
No, I think I put it on, and I don't have a cable provider logged in. Log in. So.
Okay. I didn't have any interest in watching the game. I was kind of following the score here and there throughout the evening. But they won it on a pick six to seal the game.
I mean,
so
that's
that was
that's what sealed the game, but that's not. I mean, they outplayed Alabama most of the game. That pick six was just a nail in the coffin.
All right, cool. So I think that's also the first time that Nick Saban has lost to a former assistant as well. Regular postseason play, postseason and regular season as well. So good for Kirby Smart.
Yep.
All right, Mike, let's move on to the NFL. Keep the show moving. How did the last week of our NFL Pick'em go?
Well, Rich, you and I tied with Midget Nation, 1 point behind us. Solomon and D's picks both picked 0.
Okay, so that puts us going into the postseason, Mike. What's the standings?
Regular season, you and I are tied, and Midget Nation is 20 points behind.
All right. So the game continues going into the postseason. So you'll have to hopefully reach out to Midget Nation to make sure that he makes picks. Hopefully he does. I know I get a weekly email that reminds me to make sure to make picks. So hopefully you and JR get those as well. And we'll get into our predictions for the wild card weekend, super wild card, later on in the show. But let's go ahead and recap week number 18. Mike, how'd the Bears do?
We lost.
Yes, they lost to the Vikings 31-17, dropping the Bears to 6-11 overall on the season. Mike, you finished 12-5. I finished with a record of 11-6, picking the Bears.
Yeah, it's because you held on to that hope that they would make that 8 wins.
I did.
Too long.
Yeah, I did. So I was trying to pick matchups to get them to that 8 wins, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. Last week's lock of the week, Rich, you picked the Bills over the Jets. And by golly, you got it, bringing you to 14-4 on the year.
All right, Mike, your lock did not come through as the Jaguars upset the Colts 26-11.
The Colts if the Colts win, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they couldn't beat the Jags.
No. That makes their record in Jacksonville since 2015 now 0-6.
Ugh.
And that could be costing Carson Wentz his starting job, because supposedly the owner has come out and not given him a vote of confidence guaranteeing that he could be the starter next year, although the coaching staff seems to still be behind him.
Yep.
He had some great games this year, as I had him as my fantasy quarterback for a couple of weeks, and he came through for me, putting up good enough numbers to get me some wins. But he also had some subpar or just bad performances. So that'll be something to monitor in the offseason to see what the Colts do with their quarterback position. Mike, how'd the upsets do?
So, Rich, you picked the Steelers over the Ravens. Came through in overtime.
Yes.
Moving you to 8-10 on the year for your upset specials. Rich, I picked the Dolphins over the Patriots 33-24, bringing me up to 7-11.
All right. So that loss of the Patriots did cost them, I think, some playoff position, as they dropped down to the 6th seed instead of where they started with as the 5th seed, I think it was.
Yep. So let's skip the power rankings for now.
Okay.
Because that's kind of filler at the end. We'll do that at the end.
All
if
right.
we get
So
to
do you
it.
want to go NFL head coaches, or do you want to get the postseason picks?
Let's go to coaches first. Yeah.
Okay. So going into the final week of going into the end of the regular season, we already knew that Urban Meyer and Daryl Bevel were probably so Jacksonville was looking for a new job. Technically, Rick Bicea, the Raiders coach, interim coach, has not been told that he's not going to be back. But I'm sure he's going to be at least be a candidate for the job. So I did not have the Raiders job on the list for Black Monday. So the coaches that teams that'll be looking for a new job be the Denver Broncos, who fired Vic Fangio, the Bears, who let go of Matt Nagy, and they're also in the will also get a new general manager as Ryan Pace was let go. The Dolphins fired Brian Flores. The Vikings fired Mike Zimmer and their general manager Rick Spellman. The Giants reversed course and fired Joe Judge, and Dave Gettleman retired. And the last guy that was fired was David Culley by the Houston Texans.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. Joe Judge was fired, and I believe Joe Judge was fired because of Dave Gettleman's retirement. So,
Okay.
as the team was talking to candidates for a GM position, most of the candidates were like, "Well, if you're not gonna let me pick my quarterback or my head coach, I'm not picking. I'm not gonna put a. I don't want this job." And so, sources close to the team basically said that that they ended up having to fire Joe Judge because those that they were talking to interview for Dave Gettleman's position wouldn't come unless they could pick somebody else.
Okay, that's fair. I think the only way that makes sense is if you had maybe somebody from the New England organization that knew Joe Judge. That would have been the only situation that would have made sense. Or you get into a situation of, all right, well, we like Joe Judge, so let's include him on the hiring process for the new general manager.
Yeah.
So
But
the way the Giants played down the stretch, he did not. That was terrible.
Yeah.
So I think he deserved to. I think he deserved to let go. One guy I didn't think deserved to be let go was Brian Flores.
Oh yeah. And he's going to get another job.
I think he is going to get another job this hiring cycle.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think he's going to have to sit out a year or take a defensive coordinator position to stay in the game.
So,
I mean, the Dolphins improved every single year that he was head coach.
Yep.
But I guess the reason that he was let go was because they didn't meet ownership's expectations. They thought they'd be a playoff team this year. They fell, so they didn't meet expectations. But also, when reading into it more, I guess he was also not in favor of having Tua Tagovailoa as the quarterback, saying that he wanted Mac Jones. So he wanted the Dolphins to draft Mac Jones this past year so that there could be some quarterback competition. So I guess that kind of maybe that's the writing on the wall that the Dolphins believe in Tua Tagovailoa as their starting quarterback.
Excuse me. Yeah.
And if those reports are true, that kind of makes sense to let go of Brian Flores.
So of these positions, which job looks like the best job to you?
Best job to me, if you believe in Tua Tagovailoa and the players that are presently on the Dolphins roster, I would say the Dolphins job right now off the top of my head.
That's not a terrible pick. I like that pick. They've proven that they have some skill there, but I'm gonna completely change it up.
Okay.
How about the Denver Broncos? Now,
okay.
You're
why the Denver Broncos?
Here, let me explain this.
Okay.
A head coach lives and dies by what position?
The quarterback position.
What's the one team on this list that doesn't have a quarterback?
Right now would be Denver.
Right. Okay. So if they are the only team that doesn't have a quarterback, that means you get to find somebody that you want as your guy.
Okay.
You get to work with you're going to work with your GM. You're going to work with, I mean, let's be honest. You're going to work with
John Elway.
With John Elway, and you're going to be like, this is the guy we need. Let's bring him in. What is the one thing that they are missing right now?
A quarterback.
Everything else, they have a great team.
They do. They got the wide receivers. They got the running back. They have pieces in place for a good defense.
They have a good defense pieces in for a good defense in place. That team is a great team. The only thing they're missing is a quarterback. And rather than being saddled with whoever's quarterback that you have to deal with, because do you want to go to Chicago and have to deal with
Justin Fields?
Like, I think Fields is great. I think he's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks Chicago has ever seen.
But you're being hired to develop him,
right?
Not to.
And on top of it, you're being hired to, like, this is the guy that you have to deal with. You're not getting to have any opinion on whether or not. That's why, as you tell me the story about Brian Flores, it makes me wonder if I really want Brian Flores to come up to Chicago. Is he going to be happy with Justin Fields?
And that'll be a question for the search committee that's hiring not only the coach's job, but also the general manager.
Yeah.
I think another guy that kind of got a bad rap, I think he was put into a situation to fail, but David Culley.
Oh, yeah.
In Houston.
Yeah, that guy got screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the least desirable head coaching job when he was hired, because you knew Deshaun Watson, your best player, didn't want to be there. Then the legal trouble comes about with the civil lawsuits, which you lose your best player, and you had no draft capital, and you were in a bad cap position. So you really couldn't add too many impact players because the former head coach and GM, Bill O'Brien, screwed you over.
Yep.
So I thought that he should have probably. I thought that Culley probably wasn't going to be the coach once they got out of that bad situation. But I thought that he would at least have been the coach for 2 to 3 years. Just being the fall guy for taking all those losses and maybe developing the draft picks that they chose to fill out the roster. And then they fire him maybe 2 to 3 years into the job after he's to hire the guy that take them to the next level.
The other problem that I have with that firing, they're not ready to go next year.
No.
They're not going to be ready to go next year.
They have a top 5 pick, but that's it. They have a top 5. They have draft picks back, but I don't think they're in any better of a cap situation. They're in a division with 2 teams, the Texans, the Colts, and the Titans, that have things figured out. So it isn't. Why not keep Culley? Why not pay the outside of the box hire to take all those losses instead of hiring a brand new guy? Hiring a different guy to take those losses.
I mean, don't you realize that if you take that job, you're going to be unemployed in a year?
Well, maybe 2 years, but yeah, there's that situation of, all right, how many years do I get with a bad team before I get let go because of poor performance?
I mean, he is getting paid $22 million to not coach next year. So, the settlement. He made out all right. Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe behind the scenes that he knew this was coming. I mean, he fully accepted it as saying, "All right, it's part of the job.
Yeah,
it's part of the industry. These things happen." So,
yep, and he probably did, but at the same time, I think he deserved at least another year's worth of stuff.
Yeah, at least I would have at least given him another year.
And especially because as a team, you're not going to do anything next year. Like, I guess maybe you can if you find somebody that you think is your guy for the next however many years, you're going to get to um you're going to get to have him you're going to get to have him develop the players that he wants and work with your GM to get people that he wants, but I still don't think that that's going to work.
Yeah, so the rumors are already circulating for at least for the Texans, at least that Nick Caserio is looking into Brian Flores, Jared Mayo from the Patriots.
Brian Flores, listen to our podcast, comment in our podcast that you listened, and then don't take the Texans job. Don't do it. There are better teams out there where you will win in the next few years. Speaking of, as Bears fans, who are your top 3 picks for the Bears head coaching position?
Okay, so first, let's try to go over the list of people that have either been interviewed or are scheduled or the Bears have requested to interview Mike.
Okay.
Brian Flores, the former Dolphins coach.
Makes sense.
Dan Quinn, the current defensive coordinator for the Cowboys and former Falcons head coach.
Yep.
Doug Peterson, the former Eagles Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah.
But he also comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree, as he worked under Andy Reid for a couple of years before he went to Philly. Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers and former Jets coach. Brandon Leftwich, the offensive coordinator for Tampa. Matt, probably going to butcher this name, but Eberflus, the defensive coordinator for the Colts. Brian Doble, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Packers. And Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator for the Bills. And supposedly, I also saw that they plan to interview Jim Caldwell, the former head coach of the Colts and Lions. And you mentioned pregame maybe Ryan Day is a candidate. Jim Harbaugh could be a candidate. And I think that wraps up the list from what I've heard.
The official list.
Yeah.
Now, who are your top 3 people that you think they should go after?
Well, I've been beating the drum for Greg Roman for quite a few weeks on this show, on our show. I think he'd be a good guy for the job.
I 100% agree.
I like Brian Doble from Buffalo with what he's been able to do with Josh Allen, developing Josh Allen.
Okay. I would say Brian Flores would be.
I kind of like the Brian Flores idea, and I'm starting to really come around to the idea of also maybe even Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
Bringing him down from Green Bay. You weaken your division, you weaken your biggest rival, and you give the guy a chance to get his first head coaching job.
Here's a question.
Good.
Do we expect to see Aaron Rodgers back next year?
I think at this point, I don't think that he will be back next year. Okay. I think the team has put too much effort, too much into Jordan Love that they almost have to see what they have for him. So it's not any worse of a draft pick than it already is. And it still seems like Aaron Rodgers wants to go somewhere else next year.
Yeah. So if he's not back, I mean, either way, you're weakening them even more. But they're gone. Excuse me. Man, that division.
It could go in a couple different directions based on even what happens with where Minnesota decides to go, because they could have a new quarterback next year if they trade Kirk Cousins away or decide to go a different direction, and who they end up hiring.
Yeah. So either way, my top three are Brian Flores, Greg Roman, and Ryan Day.
Okay.
For the Bears.
I mean, the guys that I don't want to see him go after is, I'm glad to see that Eric Bieniemy isn't a head coaching candidate. You've gone down the road of the Andy Reid coaching tree once. I think it's too fresh of a. You need to go with somebody in somebody else's offensive philosophy.
You know who I'm
coaching
really glad
tree.
they're not going after, it seems like?
Who?
Jim Harbaugh.
I can agree with that. He seems to me like he is a better college coach than professional coach. The reason why he lost his job or he parted ways with San Francisco is that he butted heads with management, and so I think he's better staying at the University of Michigan, or maybe going to a job where he's going to have more of a say in the front office.
Yeah.
And I don't think if he takes the Bears job that the Bears would want a head coach to also meddle and have a say in the front office operations.
Yeah. So I will see what happens. I am glad it doesn't look like they're going after him. So, Rich, it is time for Super Wild Card Weekend. Starting today, we got games. Raiders, Bengals. Who you got, Rich?
I'm going to go with the Bengals.
I am going to go with the Raiders.
Yeah, this is not a confident pick. I like both of these teams. Really, overall, the only two teams that I really don't, where I really feel like it's a lock, would be the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. But we'll get to those matchups before any other teams. I think that there's a legitimate chance that they could pull off a victory, just like you have the Raiders winning.
Yeah.
So the second game on today is the Patriots going up to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Who do you like?
I like the Bills in this one.
I agree. It's going to be cold up there in Buffalo, and Josh Allen doesn't play too well in the cold.
Nope.
But I think they'll still get the win.
We then head to the Eagles-Buccaneers in Tampa. Who you like in this game?
I like the Buccaneers.
Yeah, that again, if we were picking locks of the week, that would be my lock of the week.
Okay. I don't think it's a complete lock, but if we were doing confidence picks, they would probably be number 2 on my list. I'll get the number 1 later. The Cowboys and the 49ers are the middle game on Sunday. Who do you like?
This is my lowest confidence pick of any pick, and I'm picking the Cowboys.
You know, I originally had the 49ers when I was originally putting together my picks. Because that team is hot. They're running the ball really well. And if you can, but I think the Cowboys are going to get the win now.
So then we go to the Chiefs hosting the Steelers. Rich, who you got in this game?
I have the Chiefs. I think it's still going to be a close game, but I think the way the Chiefs are playing defense, even if Tyreek Hill is injured, I think they can still come out with a win. I expect to see a big game from Travis Kelce. If we were doing confidence picks, this is my number 1 pick.
Totally understand that. That would be my number 2 confidence pick. And I picked the Chiefs as well.
Okay. So finally, the first time that a playoff game has been played on Monday Night Football, we'll see the Cardinals go to SoFi Stadium to take on the Rams.
Yeah. I mean, the Rams, right?
Yeah. I'm going to give it to the Rams as well. So, Mike, let's sort of we got to look at how our predictions did in the preseason from where we picked on the preseason, and give an updated prediction before the playoffs start.
Okay.
So the divisions, Mike, the Cowboys took the East, which you got correct, as you picked the Cowboys to win at the beginning of the season. I said the football team would take the division. Didn't get it right. We both got the North, the Central, and the West right, as the Packers, Buccaneers, and the Rams did win the division. The wild cards, Mike, you got 2 out of 3, as you put. No, we both got one wild card right. I'm sorry. My wild card winners were the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Cowboys. I only got the Cardinals right. You put the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Vikings into the playoffs. The 49ers was the only one you got right.
Yeah.
All right. Over in the AFC, we got the East, the South, and the West right as the Bills, Titans, and Chiefs took those divisions. Mike, neither of us got the North as the Bengals won. I said it was going to be Cleveland. You said it was going to be Baltimore.
Yeah, and we apparently both picked each of those teams to be in our wild cards as well.
Yeah, I messed that one up big time. So I did not get any wild cards, as my wild card picks were the Browns, the Ravens, and the Colts. You got one right, Mike, as the Raiders did make the playoffs. You could have had two if the Chargers would have played to a tie. If Brian Staley hadn't
called a
timeout, as you put the Ravens and the Chargers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? We really didn't talk too much about what happened on the final week 18 of the regular season. That seemed to be the big baby story on, did Brian Staley overcoach the game, which caused the Raiders to kick the game-winning field goal instead of playing for a tie.
I think that they probably, it looked like that's what they were going for. But do you trust? So if it's the Bear, let's put it into perspective. The Bears Vikings are playing.
Okay.
Do you trust that the Vikings are going to let us into the playoffs with them and go for a tie?
I don't think I would.
Right. I don't trust.
From looking at playoff seeding, if you're the Raiders, would you rather go to Kansas City or Cincinnati? Because that's basically what if they tie, they go to Kansas City. If they win, they go to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So while everybody in the media and even during the game were saying that, this is a winner go home game or a tie and go to the playoff games. No, there was seeding on the line as well.
Yeah.
And they really didn't talk too much about that part of the whole win, lose, or tie situation.
The other side is, I think that was. I'm actually more upset that it looked like they were going to go for the tie.
Okay.
You always go for the win.
Exactly. The old Harm Edwards quote, you play to win the game.
Right.
I think even let's say that they don't let the timeout impact their decision to go for the field goal. Because the whole reason why Staley called the timeout was so that he could get the right personnel on the field to stop the run. And even with the right people on the field, they still didn't stop Josh Jacobs from making a big gain to put them into a better field goal position. Because I think, let's say they stop the run. I still think they send the field goal kicker out there to see what would happen. It just would have been a longer field goal.
And worst case scenario, you tie. At that point, worst case scenario, you tie.
If he misses the field goal.
Right. Best case scenario, you win.
If anything, not only did the Raiders win to get into the playoffs, I think the NFL won too. Because you didn't have to have the awkward post-game interviews of, were you guys really playing for a tie, or why'd you take the knee?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't think there's ever been an NFL game where the storyline was, are you playing for a tie going into overtime?
Now, nobody has confirmed that anybody was going for a tie. That's fact number one. So we don't know if there was a tie going on. It appears that that's what was happening, but we don't know that for sure. So let's get that out there first. Number two, okay. I'm okay with it. I'm glad they won. I think it would have been bad for the game if they go for the tie. And it would have been bad for the NFL, weakening the playoffs. So, Rich, real quick, your preseason NFC matchup. you had. Let me make sure I have.
I had the Rams over the Buccaneers.
Yeah. Do you like that still, or are you changing it up?
I think it still could happen, as depending on how the bracket falls. This still could be the NFC Championship game. However, I'm not feeling too confident with the Buccaneers because they've had some big offensive players go down injured. So I don't think they're going to make the NFC Championship game, and I'm going to switch it to Rams over the Cowboys. And I'm not really that confident with that either because I think the Cowboys could lose in the wild card round.
But
I'm going to go with it.
Out the best team in the NFL this year, and that's the Packers over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's my pick. Was preseason, still is.
All right. So over in the AFC, Mike, you got to give a new matchup because the Ravens did not make the playoffs, and you had the Chiefs beating them in the AFC Championship game. So who do you like?
I think I'm going to put the Bills in there instead. So it's going to be Chiefs over Bills.
All right. I went with the Chiefs over the Titans, and I'm going to stick with it.
Okay. That means that in the Super Bowl, you have Chiefs and Rams. You had Chiefs over Rams at the beginning of the season. Are you sticking with it?
I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to go Rams over the Chiefs.
Okay. I have the Chiefs over the Packers, and I'm going to stick with it.
Okay. All right. So we'll see how these picks do as the playoffs progress, as well as give you our picks for the next round, for the divisional round of the playoffs next week.
Yep. Okay, Rich.
So go ahead.
Let's go into our power rankings.
Yes, the power rankings.
Okay. So, number 1, I have Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No. I went with the Tennessee Titans here.
Okay. Number 3, I have the Rams.
Chiefs.
Number 4, I have the Cardinals.
Rams.
Number 5, I have the Cowboys.
I agree. I put the Cowboys at number 6.
You put the Cowboys at number 5.
5, yeah, sorry.
Number
6 is where I have the Buccaneers.
I have the Chiefs at number 6.
I put the Bills. Number 8, I went with the Bengals.
Number 7, I have the Bills as well, by the way.
Okay. Who'd you put at 8?
Number 8, I have the Tennessee Titans.
All right. Number 9 is where
the Bengals.
Cardinals.
And number 10, I have the New England Patriots.
I went with the 49ers.
I have the 49ers all the way down at 16.
Okay. Let's go down to 16. I kind of want to see where our teams fall. So number 11, I went with the Patriots.
Number 11, I went with the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay, a team that did not. Okay. Number 12, I put the Raiders.
Number 12, I put the Chargers.
Number 13, I went with the Steelers.
I went the Raiders.
14, I went with the Eagles.
I went with the Eagles there as well. Number 15, I have the Baltimore Ravens.
The Chargers.
Okay. And our bottom 5 are probably identical again?
Probably the teams, but I'm guessing not the order. So let's do it.
Okay.
Number 32, I went with Jacksonville. 31, I went with the G-Men, the Giants.
Oh, I went with the Detroit Lions.
The Giants played really bad down the stretch. So and the Lions played better. Okay. So that's why I put the Lions. They didn't go up too high, as I put them at 30.
At 30, I have the Houston Texans.
Okay. 29, I put the Jets.
29, I have the Jets.
Okay. 28, I put the Texans.
That's where I have the G-Men.
Okay. So where was your final position for the Bears?
26.
All right, we agreed. I put them at 26 as well. So once again, I think our rankings differ, especially in probably below 10, because I automatically put the teams that made the playoffs 1 through 14.
Yep.
And I ranked those teams in that order. While you put 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs into the top 14?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's our final power rankings. You probably won't do. Do you want to continue power rankings that only look at the playoff teams that are still alive at the end, or do you want to end it?
We probably just end it. I don't think there's a reason to rank the teams that are in the playoffs, because basically what happens is that each one whoever wins goes up, and whoever loses goes down.
Okay, that's fair. So Mike, we've had this on the schedule 2 weeks now, and it just keeps on getting passed over. But John Madden passing away kind of brought up, kind of maybe talking about favorite memories.
Yeah.
We both watched the ESPN, not the ESPN, the Fox Sports special.
Yep.
All Madden. There's been probably plenty, and the NFL did a great job, I think, of highlighting like his accomplishments and like kind of like honoring him because he had the unique opportunity to have worked for all 3 channels.
Yeah.
During the course of his career, so it wasn't like one network can. He didn't just work for Fox Sports. He also worked for CBS, NBC, and on ABC as part of Monday Night Football at one point during his career. So you didn't have one network choosing not to do something to honor him in weeks 16 and 17 or 18 because of that. So I mean, favorite memories. I mean, you have the video game franchise. We've grown up playing it together. We still play it together.
Yep.
But man, that's another good podcast. I think that to listen to. I think ESPN's 30 for 30 podcast did one on talking about the development of John Madden football and how involved he was on it, of wanting it to be a true 11 on 11 game, not and looking to see how it's developed as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't maybe the last 10 releases, 10 or 15 releases in the early years, he was the guy on the cover, not a player.
Yeah.
That tells you how big of a deal it was that you actually had a football video game.
Yeah, it's been so for me, John Madden is Monday Night Football. In the 90s, my dad would be home on Monday nights and we would watch football together, and that's listening to John Madden and him giving his opinion, him giving that insight. That's why we do what we do. At least for me. I don't know about you. For me, listening to John Madden and giving the insights that he did about how, as a coach, you look at things. We all feel like we could be a coach because of listening to John Madden giving you the insights. And that's, for me, that's what John Madden is. Yeah, I love the video game. The video game's great. I still play it. You talked about it, that was what it was, but sitting there next to my dad, sitting there cuddled up, listening to John Madden give us the knowledge of a grandpa passing down to the entire nation what football is all about. To me, that was John Madden. So.
All right. I mean, I'd have to say for me, I just seemed like he called the game like he was just watching it on his couch, just like you would, like the whole bam and whoop.
Yeah.
During the broadcast, it wasn't all like technical jargon of. I mean, this is why. He did have those teachable moments in the game where he was telling you, all right, this is why they were able to. This is why that running back was able to have that big hole to run through, and why they probably are going to call that play. And I think him calling games like that probably has led to people like Chris Collinsworth and Tony Romo, in a sense, kind of like predicting the plays.
Yeah.
Being if you didn't have John Madden calling the game like that, you wouldn't probably, the whole broadcasting style of the color commentators that are in the booth now could have been different.
Yep, totally agree. He is going to be sorely missed. Oh man, I don't know. For me, it's like it does feel like losing a grandpa, because we welcomed him into our house every week. So,
who do you think? Who is your favorite broadcasting partner with him? From our age of watching football, calling games, he worked with Al Michaels, Pat Summerall, and were those the only two guys he worked with primarily?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were the guys that they brought in on Monday Night Football that also did stuff.
Like okay. So did you prefer Summerall or Al Michaels with him?
Excuse me. I think for me it's Al Michaels. Again, I'm a Monday night. I think of him as Monday Night Football, not Sunday.
Sunday Fox Sports.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I think I liked him with Summerall better. I think there might have been one other guy that worked with him after Summerall passed away, but I don't recall who that was off the top of my head. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I kind of learned through the documentary that I never put two and two together about turducken.
Yeah.
Was more introduced to more of became maybe more of a Thanksgiving option, before it was more of a regional thing.
Yep.
And he made that the official Thanksgiving meal of the John Madden game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have a few other things that we have to hit on before we end the show. One, we forgot to make our picks for the Australian Open.
Yes, I guess we did.
And yes, we did. Madison Keys is in the finals, by the way.
Ooh, okay.
Go Madison.
Cool.
That's all I know.
Okay, I don't really know too much about it. I heard that Novak Djokovic is having visa problems, though.
Yeah, he didn't get the vaccine, and so he wasn't allowed to go, and then he lied about some stuff, and everything got really screwy, and it's ugly, and yeah.
Okay.
But things that are actually on things we have to talk about. A fan of the New York Giants and the New York Jets is suing for $6 billion in a class action lawsuit because both teams are in New Jersey and not in New York.
Yeah, I don't think this has any legs to it. He's saying that they should be, until they move to the state of New York and into New York City limits, that they should be called the New Jersey or the East Rutherford Giants and Jets. And a lot of it has to do, I guess, with the damages that have come from New York State fans in the New York City metro area having to drive to New Jersey to watch the games.
Nobody wants to go to New Jersey.
I mean, personally, I've always seen it as being why, but I mean it. But even just across the.
If he wins, does that mean when the Bears move to
Arlington, if they move to Arlington Heights, they can't be called the Chicago Bears?
Do we sue them if they stay with the name Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I guess you could. If Lori Lightfoot has her way, she thinks that's the way it should be called because, well, they're not playing in Chicago anymore. But if you're going to go down this road of suing the Giants and the Jets because they don't play in New York City, then you might have to go after the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
The Washington football team or whatever they're going to name their team. which, by the way, they're going to be coming out with their new name on February 2nd.
Yeah.
And I think you could technically call you. I don't think the Chargers and the Rams, they don't play in LA.
Nope.
They play in Inglewood, California.
Yep.
Just to name a few teams that don't play in the city with their name.
Yeah.
The XFL and the USFL have plans to return, Mike.
Yeah, starting this year, we should see the USFL, and they'll fail by August. And so then next year, the XFL will come up, and they'll fail by July.
Okay. Yeah, the USFL is going to have 8 teams, but they're all going to play in one location this year.
Okay.
They're going to have city names, but their teams are going to be playing in one location, and they haven't announced where that location is. The only thing that we know about the USFL right now, games will be broadcast on the NBC and Fox family of networks, with actual games being played on the over-the-air non-cable networks. And we know 4 of the coaches, but that's really about it. 4 of the 8 coaches. The XFL has not made too many announcements on where the teams will play, team names, coaches. The only thing I think The Rock has said about it is that the players are going to be hungry. So you're going to see a good game, a good brand of football. But if the USFL is around
within their first year.
Yeah, assuming that the USFL is still around when the XFL kicks off in 23, I don't know if the 2 leagues can coexist because they're basically going to be going after the same players.
Yeah. Either way, I don't think it's going to work. They'll both fail within 6 months.
All right. So the other news to come out of baseball, Johnny Lester retires.
We have 2 retirements that we have to talk about.
Okay.
Johnny Lester's the big one for us. But Milky Cabrera retired.
Yeah. Journeyman outfielder. I think he got a couple of World Series rings with those 90s
years.
Yankees teams.
So,
I think John Lester gets into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Does he wear a Red Sox cap or a Cubs cap?
I mean, I want him to wear a Cubs cap, but I think it'll be the Red Sox.
Okay. Do the Cubs retire his number? Did he do enough to get his jersey number retired?
No.
No.
How many numbers have the Cubs retired?
6.
Okay. Is John Lester done as much as any of those guys?
In my opinion, no.
Okay. I mean, in fact, I would even argue that most of the World Series winning none of those guys did enough. It was a confluence of events and the people and how it went. It had very little to do with
individual performances.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's fair. I think the Cubs blog sites, Cubs centered news or blog sites that I see come up on my news feed through Facebook and also Apple News, have talked about, do you retire number 34 and do it to also honor Kerry Wood?
I think Kerry Wood deserves it more than. Yeah, no. Either way, I don't think it really does. So. Okay.
Mike, wrap up the show. I guess to kind of wrap up the show, Rachel Balkovic was hired to coach the Low A affiliate of the New York Yankees, becoming the first female manager in affiliated baseball.
Awesome. That's great. We need more women like that. We need more women in football. We need more women in professional sports in general. Let's do it.
I like it too. We'll see if she keeps on advancing up through the ranks, or if this is coming from the Yankees, I don't think this is a publicity stunt or just a thing to get them into the news cycle.
Yeah.
With what's going on in baseball right now. I guess there was some labor negotiations as well this week, but they were quickly rejected as they didn't do enough to move the needle in baseball. On kind of another topic, but not to sidetrack Rachel's accomplishment. It's great for her. She earned it. And it'll be interesting to see how the Tampa Yankees do. I don't think they're the Tampa. I don't remember what team she got hired to coach. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how her team does and to see if she continues to move up the ladder within the Yankees organization. The Yankees organization, baseball is still at a standstill. The owners proposed some things, but they didn't do enough to move the needle, and there has been nothing's gone public as if the Players Association has presented a counter offer either.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's really worried about it until you'll see stuff start coming to a head in about a month.
Okay.
Right before pitchers and catchers are supposed to report. So.
I can see that.
Okay. Well, that was a great show, Rich. You know what? I have no shout-outs. Do you have any shout-outs before we end the show?
No, not today.
Okay. I'm going to say, let's roll the outro. Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa. This is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich.